Right. All right, Vince.
Nice.
Thanks for joining me.
Hey, welcome.
How you going? How's your day been?
Great. Lots of work right now because I'm working on many different projects, and I'm off to Greece in 2 days. So it's a lot of work, but exciting project.
Cool. And what are you doing in Greece?
Well, the idea is to create an NGO that will provide some support to the people involved in crisis around the world, like helping migrants, helping people from flood disasters, earthquake, whatever. Because the people who help the people usually don't receive much help. And since I have an hypnosis school, the idea is to bring our students to give them support. So they avoid traumatic stress post disorder stuff. And so that's the main idea. And we start a project with Greece. So we're going to Greece in 2 days.
Sounds interesting. I'll probably come back to that. So I
Anytime.
guess starting on the hypnosis, when did you first get introduced to hypnosis?
I believe it was in 2009 or 2010. And it was really out of the blue like that from a friend who recommended me a book about hypnosis, and it
What
all
was the
started.
book?
I think it was called Self-Hypnosis by Kevin Finel, and Kevin Finel is the founder of the school of hypnosis called Arch in France.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that? Sorry.
Sorry, it's ARCHE, like the Noah Arch, even if it doesn't have any relationship actually.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then what happened from there? Like moving
Well,
forward.
from
Like
them,
what interested you about it? Like, so you read this book and it obviously had an impact on you.
a big
And
impact. Well, first I didn't want to read the book. So my friend was we were in a restaurant in Paris with a friend, me coming from Geneva, my friend coming from Brussels, and he said you should really read this book. It's about hypnosis, and I said, well, I'm not interested. Hypnosis, blah blah blah. Oh, yeah, okay. So we continue eating, and then the second time he comes up with the book. Oh, you should really see. Should really have a look at it. And I said, I'm not interested. Blah blah blah. Then third time. And I have to precise that we chose a restaurant completely randomly in a city that wasn't ours. And on the third notification of why I should read the book, blah, 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 the author of the book walked in the restaurant
whoa.
and sat down a few tables next to us. And I said, what are the odds? Come on, impossible. The odds are impossible. Impossible that you're in a foreign city, you pick up randomly a small Chinese restaurant out of a neighborhood you don't know, a friend you haven't seen in a long time talk to you about a random book, and the author of the book just sits right next to us. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's a sign. I have to read the book. So I bought the book and I started to read the book. And the second thing that struck me is the fact that every quote in the book was from books I just read, I just bought, or I was just reading. So I said, there has to be something with hypnosis. So I have to see what this guy is all about, and I have to start learning it just to see if it's for me or not. That's how it started, basically,
Yeah,
2010.
interesting. And then when did you? So after you read that book, what did that book open you up to that you hadn't known before?
Well, what attracts me to the course and what made me want to follow the course was the fact that but what happened in the restaurant, and the fact that the author of the book sat next to us, and and the fact that the book really talked about a bunch of other references about shamanism, about Carlos Castaneda, about Zen Buddhism, about the warriors traditions from martial art, from the Toltec traditions, and that really got me to follow the course. Now, what interested me in the book was just it triggered my curiosity about what can be done with the human brain. And I really struggled with the exercises in the book on one point, but on the second point, it really triggered my curiosity. And I said, well, if somebody says it's possible, maybe it's possible to travel within yourself, to open up new realm of realities, to change old habits, and to discover a new you, or to become, I don't know, your old and you, whatever, however you frame it or however you see it, doesn't really matter. What I like is that it gives you more freedom. It gives you more freedom, and freedom to an old structure. You can be on the move again. You can start exploring what you are really all about.
And were you able to realize that through the reading or the doing? I guess there's a doing part of hypnosis. Like, the name of the book is called Self-Hypnosis. Sorry.
Yes.
And by who? What's his name?
It's the head of the school I'm now working for. It's Kevin, so Kevin, and his last name is Finel. It's Finel.
Okay. And so back to my question, you read this book, and you said you were struggling with some of the exercises. Moving forward from that, like, did you notice significant changes in yourself quickly? Like, did you notice I guess your pillars of your own self, did they start to open up then?
It really opened up when I started the course to learn about hypnosis itself. I mean, the way it was taught back in the days, and through a book, I mean, self-hypnosis is like learning martial art. It's hard to learn martial art from a book, especially if you don't know martial art before. So self-hypnosis for me, it's a little bit like learning a martial art. It's hard to learn it from a book. So it gives you insights, gives you bits and tips. It can trigger your curiosity, but to learn everything from a book, it requires a lot of patience and a lot of hard work and disappointment. So what really opened me up and challenged the pillars on which I had based my the foundation of my personality was the 4 weeks course that I followed in France between 2010 and 2011. I think those were the 2 years.
And, going back 10 years, do you know what your key pillars started to break down, first? Whether it be, like, for example, if your pillars around either could be your self-belief, it could be any issue that you have, it could be eating, it could be exercising, it could be smoking, it could be a million things that you have a desire to look at differently. And can you remember back then what opened up?
Yeah, sure. When I started hypnosis, I was working in the field of criminology, and I was really how do you say in English, a closed person, so to speak.
What does closed look like?
Close, like, I don't know. I was protecting myself from people, from feelings, from my feelings, from other people's feelings.
How did you do that?
How? I don't know. I just for me it was I don't know, inborn maybe. I don't know. It was easy for me to protect myself from feelings.
Okay.
And when I started to study hypnosis, I said, "Oh shit, we are going to have to feel people and to share emotions and to listen to their emotions and to take their emotions and to work with their emotions." So for me, it was a big challenge to do that, because in order to work with the emotions of a person, you have to open up to your own emotions. You have to show your emotions. So for me, it was a big step, and my shell started to crack I had already started this work with the martial art I was studying, but this my shell was really starting to be cracked up and open up with hypnosis.
Sure. And then, okay, so you did the 4-week course, and was that practicing with other students? Was it
Yeah,
in a live environment?
it's very live. It's very practical course. I mean, our school is very, very because I'm working with them now. That's why I said our school. But it's very live environment. Everyone is working with everyone, and it's a very practical course. So over the course of these 4 weeks, you really get your hands on, and there's very, very few theoretical. I mean, it's a few principles, and of course a theoretical background, but it's a very practical course.
Yeah, sure. And then, moving forward, what happened?
Forward in time, you mean?
Well, yeah, sure. Like, you've gone to this course. Now what?
Well, after the
Sorry, what martial art were you practicing at this point?
at this point, I was practicing Russian martial art called Systema.
This is back in 2009.
Yeah, I think I started in 2008 to practice Russian martial art
Okay.
called Systema.
We'll come back to the martial art part.
Sure.
So, you've learned a lot in this environment of practicing, learning, teaching. I guess, would you say that you used martial arts as like this a similar way to hypnosis? It's a skill, it's an art form, it takes time, it's not something you can read upon. What do you feel like what is something tangible that you could say that you have now when either teaching or facilitating hypnosis? What do you feel like has dramatically improved?
In my hypnosis skills now versus to what they used to be.
Yeah.
Over the period of 10 years.
Yeah.
Many things. I mean, I had so many ideas about what hypnosis was, and it's a changing thing. So it keeps evolving.
And what is hypnosis for you? Like what?
Well,
Yeah.
hypnosis is a set of tools and techniques that help someone to create the right framework to invite a person to explore all the realms of reality and to explore its subjectiveness. That means it's the way it subjectively interact with the world. Hypnosis helps a person to change the way you subjectively interact with the world, and everything is based on our subjectivity. So if one can start to put some flexibility in his own subjectivity, then he can have way more freedom to interact with the world that surrounds that person. Sorry for my English. It's not.
No. The flexibility in the subjectivity is a nice line. And what's something that you see? Is there something that is a reoccurring thing that you see constantly throughout your teachings and your doings in what people want to get out of hypnosis?
Well, it varies because a lot of people do not really know what hypnosis is, and it's hard to know unless you try it for yourself and you experiment it. So a lot of people have weird ideas about it, but once they explore it, they realize that it's actually much simpler than they thought it would be, and also much more extraordinary than what they
Much more what? Sorry, what was the word?
Simpler. It's
Sure.
much more common than what it is. Most people experiment hypnosis or trance-like states within the day. they just don't know what it is. So they completely ignore it, and they miss the chance to explore these states, to explore themselves and change things about them. But throughout the course of the day, many people explore, I mean, trance-like states where
Is sleep? Would you say sleeping is trance-like?
no, sleeping is sleeping. Trance-like states are like, for example, moments of absence where you just drift away in your thoughts and you start dreaming of. You just do like daydreaming would be closer.
Listening to
You,
music? Like, do you have to be cognitively functioning?
you could, but listening to music is one where you lose track of time, where you lose track of directions, when you lose focus, or on the contrary, where you are extra focused. You walk into a museum and all of a sudden you're completely touched by a piece of art and you lose completely track of time, of who is around you, and you're completely absorbed in a piece of art, and you try to feel or imagine what it must have been like to do this piece of art at the time it was created. And that's a door within your subconscious that opens up, and you can exploit that door to go deeper. But most people miss it because they just don't know it's the beginning of hypnosis. Hypnosis is a very, very normal thing.
So it's a creative part of our brains that we don't usually access, and
Definitely.
Yeah.
Creative, and it's really has to do with the creativity and imagination. For example, for me, kids, most of their time are in a similar state they're in a sort state of hypnosis.
Okay, because they're creative and they're not thinking about what could happen, and they're not analyzing. They're just being.
Well, because they believe a lot of things beyond their own. They have not closed themselves to the real world, and they are still open.
Yeah.
So the good thing is they're very creative, very imaginative. They change their mind often. They find solutions. They rediscover the world 1,000 times. They explore the living room 1,000,000 times. They invent themselves solutions for problems. Of course, they create solutions that don't exist for problems that don't exist, because most of our problems don't exist anyway as grown-ups. We just make them up. The only problem with it is their suggestibility is so high, then they believe anybody. And first, they believe their parents. And as adults, we basically protect ourselves from believing whoever. But at the same time, we then stop believing in other things, and we stop believing in the power of creativity, imagination. And see, it's not a win-win. It's either win both or you lose both. And hypnosis gives you a little bit of both. It's like you keep your own, ability to select what you want to believe and what you don't, and at the same time, you explore your own creativity and imagination again. I don't know if I'm clear or...
No. I guess what I hear is, like, when you're a child, you're not, you're really able to explore if that dragon on that top of the building, you believe it. There is no, maybe it's not real, and questioning your own self as a child. And then that, from personal experience, there's that goes in time. And that dragon disappears.
Yeah, and a good example, because it's funny, I had seen clients all day today, and I was explaining to one person, as a kid, for example, you have a presentation to do at school, and you're 5 years old, and you're scared because you talk in front of the class, and then mommy comes in the room and says, "Oh, well, what do you want?" And the kid is always crying in his bed. He said, "I wish I had such confidence, and the same confidence as Hulk." And then mommy pulls out the Hulk toy, the puppet, and just handed it to the kid and said, "Well, why don't you sleep with Hulk? And over the night, he will give you his power." And so does the kid. And then sleeps with Hulk, and there's a great chance that the kid in the morning feels more confidence because he has gained the confidence of Hulk overnight. tell that to a CEO who's afraid to do a big meeting the next day and who's scared because his board will be there and blah, 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 and the numbers are not good, and he lacks confidence. Just tell that CEO, well, sleep with Hulk tonight and you'll feel better tomorrow. He's not going to believe you.
But the thing that I get from that is like the power of belief and what Hulk does for us. Okay. And what, if we put belief into something, then what we can get back from that. But then there's another part of me that thinks, well, you're putting ownership onto something else, which is Hulk.
No, it's just a metaphor. It's just an example, because the thing is.
But do you believe that the Hulk idea is, yeah, like, do you believe that it, no, just bear with me. Do you believe that it's a positive because we're like, yeah, well, what would you explain happens when, for that child, or for example, a CEO sleeps with Hulk, you know, maybe not. Yeah.
Because the subconscious of the kid is so open that doesn't question the fact that it's possible. So our subconscious usually want to help us. So if you tell your subconscious, look, you're going to spend as much time thinking about Hulk tonight and make all the deep connection, whatever, and all the insights you can gain from whatever image or whatever feelings, whatever sounds you know, whatever information you have from Hulk, please use it for your own self. And so we're both more confident tomorrow morning.
I see.
That's the thing. It's an internal process, but the kid doesn't question the fact that it's possible. He just believes. He believes in anything. He believes in Santa Claus. The CEO is not going to believe it because it's just going to say this would be too easy. This is crap. This is whatever. In a state of hypnosis, I have CEOs in my practice that walk like lions, that scream like whatever, Superman, and the fact that they experiment that at the deep level, their subconscious open up again to the possibility that they can learn from it. They can that's how you learn.
But is part of, yeah, sure. And is part of that they're embodying the part that they want to, and also that there's a process to it. They're not, do you believe it needs to be double, so they need to believe it and then act it? So there's a process behind it?
They don't need to believe it. They just need to want to experience hypnosis. And with hypnosis, you can open again the possibility to learn from mimicking. That's one of the few things that's one of the many things that you can do with hypnosis. You can do many more.
And do you believe that like a big benefit is just them doing something that they didn't think was possible?
Yes, and also for a split, I don't know, and also for a few minutes to be able to walk on the face of this earth with the confidence of Hulk, for example.
Sure.
After that experience, the brain keeps a memory of that. And then if you explain to the brain that it can grow on this experience, it will make it a reality. Because for the brain, whatever is imagined and whatever is real, there's a fine line, but it's hard for the brain to make the distinction between reality and what has been dreamed of, or what is just created by the mind. I mean, imagine, look, we are constantly hallucinating. Like, for example, many people, just by knowing that they have an important presentation or meeting, whatever, in a week, will start to be emotionally challenged by that future event. They will be emotionally challenged now, having sometimes headaches, sometimes stomach cramps, and sometimes they will feel stressed for an event that hasn't been happening yet, and for which they don't know how it's going to come out. They don't know how it's going to turn out.
Okay, so I would say you're exactly right. However, knowing, like, in my opinion, that we worry about things in the future that could have impacts on us, that could lead to pain or rejection or abandonment or, you know, whatever the key things around maybe giving a speech would be. So do you believe that those things are reframable at any point?
Yeah.
Reframable or completely reprogrammable? Do you think you can get rid of abandonment?
Of what?
Of like the idea of abandonment. Like, do you think abandonment is something innate? Do you think we all feel it at some point, at some time, and it's natural?
No. It's probably natural, but it's learned. There are only two unlearned fears. Only two, and that has been proven scientifically for many years. Only two learned fears. It's the fear of falling and the fear of big sound. Everything else is learned. So that means everything else can be unlearned.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm not saying it's useful at any case. I mean, fear is very useful, and it might be useful to stress, and it might be useful to fear. And it's, of course, you know, the idea is not to be completely reborn, but to feel that you can choose a little bit more what type of conditioning you want to keep and that you don't want to keep. I mean, it helps you to live a better, I mean, for me, easier life, or not a better life, but at least your own life, because you choose your own conditioning, at least.
Sure. And like going back to the speech, but there's a narrative around why we worry. Like, let's just give example the speech. And there would be so many psychological aspects that come into that. There would be worried about what your peers are going to think of you. Then what could happen? And then, like, you know, you think of multiple scenarios that could happen on if it goes badly. What if the sound cuts out? You know, your brain can create all these different scenarios, usually based upon negative outcomes. And so to reframe, do you believe with hypnosis you can reframe that so none of that stuff comes up at all?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's interesting because our brain, of course, is hardwired in a much more efficient way for things that can potentially go bad.
I would agree. Yeah, our brains are hardwired like that. Yeah.
Why? Because that's how we've survived as a species. If we would have, take an example. You take two, I don't know, cavemen, whatever, laying on the grass, and then one of them say, I hear a funny sound. We should get going. I hear a funny sound. And the other guy is just like, yeah, don't worry, man. It's just, you know, just the wind blowing through the leaves. Well, the guy who was worried is our ancestors because he survived. The other one just got eaten by freaking dinosaurs.
Okay, sure.
So our ancestors, I mean, we survived as a species because our ancestors worried too much. That's why we value bad stuff over good stuff. It's because it's hardwired in a system. But now they are, and it's useful sometimes. But I think we have to look at things in a more honest way, especially if you make a speech. Of course, it can go bad, but it can also go very right. And then why should we spend so much time worrying, especially knowing that the worry will not help the speech to go better? So, I mean, even if a little bit of stress might help some people to be more prepared and give a better speech. On a general
because
note,
I think it, you know, I think it's just based upon the idea of them, you know, their idea of themselves. Like, for example, a CEO giving a statement or a speech, if it goes bad, well, his identity is all wrapped around his role as a CEO. So then, therefore, if it goes bad, then his identity could, in his mind, could completely fall apart. And that, yeah, I think that can be uncomfortable. If you've worked,
yeah, but it's based on just random thoughts. Same for the kid who's afraid to do a presentation. Same from the kid who's afraid to fail an exam.
But they're not all wrapped up in their own identity at that age.
Of course they are. It happens very quickly. Same for the teenager who goes to his first date. Same for the, I don't know, anything, for anything. All fears are created by the mind and of course are justified and of course are based on sometimes to the level of our identity, but it doesn't mean they're justified and doesn't mean they're truth and doesn't mean they should be taken care. I mean, they should be listened to too seriously.
But can you give it, do you believe that there's a hierarchy and that the CEO, you know, let's just say the CEO of a company, and if he stuffs up a speech, it could have repercussions that because he cares for so many people and he looks after so many people, that's heightened because he has more people. But a child giving a speech about dinosaurs when he's 6, you know, I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, do you think, yeah, like there's different aspects to this CEO versus a child? Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no hierarchy in the. There's no hierarchy. It might be more terrifying from the kid because maybe he thinks that he's gonna die if he fails his speech, his presentation about dinosaurs. Whether the CEO, he has read many self-development books and he's done a course in psychology and he knows all this stuff. So fear is mostly irrational. So I don't think there's a hierarchy. I mean, people have all sorts of problems and they're usually very subjective problems.
So does that mean, from an anxiety standpoint, that you don't feel anxiety?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I do.
Do you ever worry about scenarios and then get deeper in those scenarios?
And what?
Like if I'm running late for this and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens, or if this scenario, or are you reframing, are you having the thought but reframing it, or it's not even coming up?
No, it doesn't usually come up. I mean, I have fears, I have worries, and not to the point of anxiety. That's why I was thinking about it. I think I still have fears, and I think it's okay to have fears. You know, I think the goal is not to be, you know, to search for perfection, whatever. I don't even like this term because it doesn't mean anything. But when I have a fear, I'm trying to look at it honestly, and I'm trying to accept it as being a part of me, and I'm trying to look further away than my fear, and I'm trying to work with it. And you know, like I'm trying to get on top of the tiger and then ride it. But
are you? Is this a process? Are you? Let's just say you're running late for a big training that you're doing. Are you stressing on when you're on your way about being late? Are you having any thoughts like this could happen? I've let these people down, or is it just you're running late and that just is?
No, I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I guess it depends from one situation to another. I've been working on my running late, so it haven't happened in a little while. But yeah, if it's running late for customer, I would probably think, oh, I should. I don't know. No, I'm not worried. I'm just gonna let them know that I'm late and I'm sorry, and that's it.
Okay.
It doesn't bring any. It doesn't bring much stress. It probably does to a very little extent, but not too much.
Okay. But was that always the case?
Oh no.
And what was it like before?
I could worry much because I would feel guilty about letting people down, and then I would be afraid for not them to like me, or I would lose an opportunity to grow my business or stuff like that. I've known these emotions.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess that's what I wanted to hear. Just to to see if you have experienced that way of thinking, and then to be on the other side of it now. What does it feel like?
I mean, I'm more relaxed, you know. Me worrying it about being late is not helping. Didn't help me to be less on time. I mean, to be less late. Sorry.
It makes sense. Sure.
So I said, you know, why worried? If I'm worried, if it makes me that sick, why am I running late? In my responsibility, what did I do or not do to bring myself in such state? So I decided to change that, and or at first to change and to work within my own emotions and fears, and then change my habits so I am not running late so much.
Okay, so yeah, there's a practicality element in there as well.
Course.
Yeah,
That's also that's what I like about it too. I mean, hypnosis is a very practical thing, and a lot of time there is an emotional component, but of course there's a practicality also, you know, and people need to work. It's not because you're doing hypnosis all the time that you're not going to be facing real life problems.
sure. Yeah, yeah. The problems still there. It's just a reframing of it. Would you say?
Yeah, you just don't look at it in the same way. You just different way. Again, everything is subjective. The important is not the things that happen to us. It's the way you deal with what happens to us. We see it all the time. I mean, two women get raped. They don't. One is gonna, her life is destroyed. That's it. Never able to get in a relationship again. Depressive person on anti-anxiety pill, whatever, prescription drugs, and the other one is just gonna change her life all around and then build a community around the abused woman, and she's gonna write a book, and she's gonna build her whole life, and she's gonna be born again. And it's all the, and that's crazy. I mean, we all react different to different things, but that means it's possible to do it.
Sure.
Just a matter of how you wired, you know, yeah, it's how you're wired inside that makes a difference, I guess.
And I guess you've been teaching hypnosis for how long?
Well, I started over the last years, probably over the last 3-4 years.
And what, apart from your own kind of journey with hypnosis, what was a big driver for you wanting to teach it?
Well, I don't know. It's well, I guess I do know. It was a it's true. It was a good opportunity to meet with people and to share experience with them. And once you're touched by the power of this tool and the power of the fact to, I mean, the experience of experiencing different state of trances and the impact it can have on your life, and it's a great process. I really wanted to share that, and received the opportunity to do so within the school in Paris I talked about earlier, Arches. And so it was a great experience for me to share that. And it's beautiful when you see people, does their eyes start to open up with the smiles, and you should see how the people look at the beginning of the class, the beginning of the course, and at the end of the course. They're not the same people.
And what changes in regards to physical? Just physical.
Yeah, physical, definitely less. I don't know. They seem less tense.
Where do they seem less tense?
In the face.
Yeah.
Definitely in the face. Less worried. They see a new world opening up for them. A new world of opportunity. They realize that there's a whole universe within their 2 ears, and it's just up to them to explore it. The communication becomes better. They see clear in manipulative relationships. So all they can do with people around them. I don't know. It's a new world opening up for them. It's a very nice thing to witness, and I feel very fortunate to share that with the people I work with in school. Yeah,
that's amazing. And would you think that there's a common, like a similar thing that, you know, just going on that toxic relationships and being able to see clearer? Is there anything else that you see is like a common thing that people go, oh shit, I can relook at something. I'm clearer on this thing, whether it be an addiction, whether it be anything. Is there anything that you see very consistently?
Well, the way, yeah, there's usually a day in the beginning. I think it's the fourth day of the first week when we touch upon indirect suggestions. People realize how we are manipulating ourselves all the time.
Can you go into this?
Yes, of course. A simple example would be, okay, when a mother tells her child, for example, that goes to first day of school, and she says, well, don't be afraid. You don't need to feel fear. Don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. Well, for the subconscious mind to process that sentence, it has first to feel fear, and then consciously try to negate it with the consciousness. It's easy.
Okay, hold on. So is it the fear is the priming word to make it come?
No, it's easy. It's like, okay, right now, do not think of a red pig on a pink bike.
Sure, yeah, straight away. Yeah.
Okay, it pops up, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And there are many, many different ways to suggest anything to people. And when you start to discover that there's a way to frame it, a way to say it, a way to, you also become more aware of your own manipulation and the way you manipulate people, because we cannot not manipulate one another. It's impossible.
Manipulation meaning what?
Influence. We cannot not influence one another. We do it constantly, just by the way we walk, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we want to be listened, the way we want to be talked to, the way we approach people. It's all about influencing and manipulation. So for me, the only ethical way to do so is to learn about it. And so that's the only way you can have an ethical way to influence or manipulate others, is to be able to see clearly through your own manipulation and see clearly through the manipulation of people. Because we're made for that. As a kid, we wouldn't survive it without the manipulation of our own parents. Our parents manipulate us constantly.
Of course, yeah.
So our brain, I mean, I'm not going to say it likes it, but our brain is made to be manipulated.
And then what? We spend the rest of our lives unlearning the manipulation?
If you want to, but yeah, basically, yeah. Basically. For the lucky ones. For the lucky ones.
The lucky ones. Oh, that's so good.
But it's not an easy, it's not an easy process. But also, the biggest manipulator of all, and I sometimes I have fun teaching, and I say that to the audience. I often say, okay, you are now facing the biggest, greatest hypnosis of all time, your brain. And it's not from me. I think it's from Richard Bandler, the guy who created NLP. I think he said that first. Because our brain is the biggest hypnosis and manipulator ever. Some people are going to walk all their life thinking they're ugly, stupid, and worthless. It's not true. It's just a subjective piece of reality that they have learned, sometimes in the process of growing up or through experience or whatever.
Sure.
But it's not true. It doesn't mean anything. But it will have an impact for the rest of their life unless they decided to take their hands on it. But somebody who believes he's pretty, or somebody who believes he's not pretty, it's just a subjective thing. I mean, it's what is beauty anyway? Same thing with intelligence, same thing with happiness, same thing with greatness. There's that sentence that says, if somebody believes he's capable of doing something, and if somebody believes that thing cannot be done, they're both right.
Sure, of course they are. Yeah,
Yeah, they're both right.
because there is no right. There is no like
No.
definitive. Yeah.
That's why. That's why. Don't believe everything you think about yourself. I mean, people should not believe everything about you.
Okay, but just on the beauty thing, the beauty things, I believe. I guess this is projecting the way I would think, is that let's just say I was a female and that I was a supermodel and that I'd gotten a lot of attention my whole life and that my big number one driver was appearing well. Okay.
Yeah.
And then that was one of my core values, and it was also a big belief that I was striving for. Okay. And then my identity was wrapped around it because I was a model, and I now had people that looked up to me, or, you know, I don't know. And I think to just go in and go, cool, like to go, well, why have I been doing this my whole life? Because I thought I was ugly, and I've been doing it to feel beautiful. And then if that belief changes, then their whole world changes.
Yeah,
It could.
It could for the best, but that's an interesting point that you bring in. Nothing is a problem unless it is felt as a problem for the person.
So say that again.
Okay, nothing is a problem unless it is lived. It is being lived as a problem for the person. Like I could think, for example, that I'm very ugly and be completely okay with it, and I don't want to change that. Then it's fine, it's perfect. Or
so if there's a drive to not be okay, you think
that's the only thing. It's only contextual, because I could believe I'm the most handsome man on the earth, but I cannot sleep because of that belief. Then that's a problem. You see?
I see.
Nothing is a problem unless it is a problem for the person. And that's why it's interesting also, because I've sometimes a problem.
I like that line, yeah.
Because a problem can become a drive for a person. Like, okay, let's say a person is okay, a problem is let's say a person is a control freak. Let's assume he's a control freak, right? Well, that might be a problem if he is a teacher in a kindergarten class. That can be a problem. It could be a potential problem for that person. Being an airplane pilot and be a control freak, that might be a good idea. It might be a valuable skill for that person. You see the point, the idea?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. If it's impacting their life in a negative way, and that it's hurting, then yeah.
Yeah. So it's only based on the person that says, oh, I feel this is hurting me. I like to change it. But it's certainly not up to me. And that's just something important to keep in mind. We're not changing anyone. We're just creating the conditions in which a person can change it himself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I'm nobody to say to anyone, oh, you should change because this and that. I could care less, basically. Who am I to put the judgment on somebody's life, and it's their life. If they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. I don't have a problem with anybody's way of living. It's only if somebody's seeking help, saying, okay, I can't sleep at night because I have fear of spiders, and I believe there's a spider somewhere in my room and I can't find it. Well, then maybe we can talk about it, and maybe there's something you can do about it. But if the person says, I can't sleep at night because I know there's a spider in my room, and until I find the spider, I'm not going to sleep. Well, if that spider is a vanilla spider, it might not be the stupidest idea, you know? I don't think I'd be sleeping either. It's true. So see,
Yeah.
it's only a problem if it is a problem for a person. No, it's not up to me to decide.
Interesting.
I've many people who come to my practice and they smoke. They don't see me for stop smoking.
Because they don't want to stop smoking, though.
No, they don't want to stop smoking. And who I am, I don't care if they smoke or not. I mean, it's fine for them. It's fine for me if they smoke. Who am I, to tell them to stop smoking? I'm not their mom.
No. Yeah, like people have to have the inner drive to want that thing to change before it can change.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be ethical. First of all,
I see what you're saying. So with hypnosis, let's just say I had a belief that I wasn't good enough.
okay.
Yeah. And that decision had multiple downsides. I made multiple decisions off this.
Okay.
Do you think that's, and then I could tap into that where it hurt, where it didn't serve me? Do you think I can, with hypnosis, reframe all of that?
I don't know all of that, but probably some of it. Also, there's a difference between hypnosis and therapy. Hypnosis is a set of tools, and we've seen it on TV. You can use hypnosis sometimes to amuse people. You can do self-hypnosis. It's a tool. And then therapeutic work is based on a trust relationship between two people, with a framework, a common agreement to work together, and blah blah. Together, it is called hypnotherapy, and it's therapy that mostly use the tools framed as hypnosis. And they work together, and it's usually multiple sessions, and it's a process. So on the example that you say, through the process of therapy with hypnosis, you can probably change something, and you can probably work on it. Now, to which degree, to whatever, then it depends on the person. Maybe a little would be enough. Maybe the person want to change it all upside down. It really depends from one person to another.
Sure. Yeah, I hear that. I understand what you're saying. Just give me a sec. I might. So from here, you have an extensive background in martial arts.
Yes, so to speak.
When did you first, I guess, start to learn martial arts?
I started learning martial arts when I was 10 years old. I was, I don't know, I was brought to a judo class by my mother, and I started then, I guess. And then I did many few things, but it is not until in my 20s that I discovered Jeet Kune Do, martial art introduced to the world by Bruce Lee. And that's really, that is the martial art that really got me into martial art.
And where did you get to? How long did you practice it for?
Well, Jeet Kune Do as itself includes many different art, like Silat, like Filipino martial arts, like Kali, Muay Thai, of course Wing Chun with Jikiri, Jun Fan, Vale Tudo, wrestling, all these arts, and I practice some of them more than others over the course of 10 years, basically.
And what do you feel like? Yeah, this is it sounds like there's a big process in learning anything for 10 years, especially martial arts. And I know that you still do the martial arts now, but in those days of Jeet Kune Do and Kali, which is like a knife fighting, it's a Filipino knife fighting, is that right?
Like Kali is a weapon-based system, so
Yeah.
stick fighting, knife fighting, yeah, mostly.
And for your own inner work, what if there were three things that martial arts has taught you during the process, what would they be?
Meaning that process before I met with the Russian martial art or after?
Yes, no, just in that 10 years where Jeet Kune Do and then I guess everything offshooted from Jeet Kune Do.
Three things. That's tough one. That I got from these 10 years. I guess the usual stuff, like, nothing comes off easy. You need to train hard. Practice hard. It was really for me dedication to the arts itself, and maybe that the arts were cultural related also. But for me, I still made a distinction between the arts that I was studying and real life.
And how did you do that? And I guess anything not tangible, but anything. Yeah, like I don't want to plant any seeds here, but I guess I'm looking for something within your own psyche through doing psyche and body of doing these pretty ancient and quite traditional martial arts for 10 years.
Well, it sounds a lot of body work, but it's also, I don't know, it sounds strange, but at some point I realized that all these arts were, every martial art has a base in culture. It's a culture that you learn. And I realized, from Jun Fat Jikiri and Wing Chun, which is more Chinese, then you had Muay Thai, which is more Thai, of course, Thailand. Then Silat from Indonesia, then Filipino martial arts from the Philippines and Malaysia. At some point you have to study the cultures, and then these cultures are very far from ours, and it became very complicated to get involved in so many arts and be good at it. And for me, it was really a body practice, but it didn't really help me with my mind and my psychic, and it really didn't help me in my day-to-day life. And I thought I was strong at the time.
You thought you were? Sorry?
I was pretty strong, and I was pretty good at it. And I thought
strong meaning?
I was pretty good at fighting, I thought, and I was pretty good at martial art. And that was until I encountered Russian martial art.
And what year did you find this?
I think it was 2008 already. 2008.
It does seem like in that period that your life went through quite some change with hypnosis and Systema.
Yeah, it really happened at the same time, basically. I think Systema opened me the way to hypnosis. I don't think I would have been ready for hypnosis if I hadn't done a little bit of Systema before.
And so we're coming up to, close to 10 years again for Systema. And have you just concentrated on Systema for the last 10 years?
Yeah, I couldn't do anything else. Once I discovered Systema, I dropped every single thing that was really studying.
And tell me about this. Tell me about this journey. I love the dedication of
You seem surprised
because I think I just have a lot of respect that you have gotten really deep in this martial art. Now, I guess after we met in Iceland, I came back to Sydney and I did some Systema. And I believe that I saw a small window of what it had to offer. Obviously very small window. And I guess I got around, like, from the maybe 5 or 6 sessions that I had, the body work and the body and the breath work was, and just like surrendering to the idea that your body's going to move in ways that you have never moved before, and you are going to breathe and do things that you have never done, and that the positive of these, like it's beyond thinking, it's beyond why am I doing this? You're just doing it. Yeah, and that's nice. And I would say that state, I don't know, I don't want to go into this now, but that state of just not thinking or rationalizing or justifying and just breathing and rolling or moving with someone, it's a dance, you know, it was nice. Yeah.
It's very deep. It's very deep stuff. I mean, for me, Russian martial arts, it's the, you know, I before I met Jeet Kune Do, I was doing kickboxing, boxing, and very like physical stuff. A little bit of Muay Thai also, even before I started Jeet Kune Do. When I met Jeet Kune Do, I said, okay, that must be it. It's a very philosophical martial art. You know, Bruce Lee wrote a lot about philosophy. He had a PhD in philosophy, or at least a master in philosophy. And for me, Jeet Kune Do is very philosophical. And when I met, when I jumped, when I felt, when I crashed with Russian martial art, I said, okay, this is a spiritual martial art. This is an internal art. And Systema is an internal art more than anything else. And it's a very, it's deeper than anything I've encountered. Like I was just reading a sentence written by Martin Wheeler, who is an excellent instructor in Los Angeles. He said, Systema as a martial art can only be learned through feel, philosophy, experimentation, and of course, brutal reality. And that's the thing I think that makes it so different than the other art, is that it shows you real life. And for me, that's
what does real life mean?
Real life is it's an interesting concept. Real life is what we are protecting ourselves against since we're grown up. Since as a kid, we fall into real life. That means everything is painful, everything is unexpected, everything is unknown, everything is scary. And as we grow up, we more and more and more protect ourselves from it. And I think we have to, in order to build ourselves, in order to grow. And it's useful to protect ourselves against real life. As society, we have protect ourselves against real life big time. Everything is scheduled, everything is planned, everything is foreseeable, predictable, everything is codified. We have laws, regulations, everything is, basically people wake up in the morning and they pretty much know what's going to happen in their day. At a certain time in civilization, you would wake up in the morning and you wouldn't know if you would be alive, you know, at the end of the day, because real life was all over the place.
And then how does that tie in line with Systema though?
Well, Systema is very unpredictable, even in practice.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Everything is built on intuition. The movement that you have to do, they are yours. You're not told how to react. You just breathe and move and try to survive. You try to swim, follow the flow, try to punch, be punched, open up. You're afraid of being punched, open up more, breathe, relax. It's like a flow, it's like a dance, and it's very close to real life. And you feel a lot of emotions during training, because not knowing during training is an interesting process. But for me, it's the closer it gets, it's the closest it gets.
So is it the uncertainty that it provides that you really crave, or you have gotten a lot from?
The uncertainty you mean as a pupil, as a student in Systema?
Sure. I guess with Jeet Kune Do, generalization here, but I believe there would be quite a lot of structure around quite a lot of martial arts that you have tried. A lot of regimen. There's a way of doing things. It's a traditional. This is the way you do it. That is it.
Yeah, with many, not katas, but training forms, training patterns.
Yeah.
Series of five series of kicks, punch, way angles, way to handle the stick.
And there's a
Systema,
rigidity to that, yes, but also a discipline and a mastery.
very,
Yeah.
very.
But
it's
now
not
with Systema, did you feel like that uncertainty and that fluidity of Systema changed bigger parts of you?
Yeah, I think it's more the feeling, because in Systema you have to feel. You have to feel the others. You have to feel yourself. You have to feel your fears. You have to feel your weakness. You have to feel everything. Everything goes through feeling. And for me, that was a big eye-opening, and it was terrifying at first, because you cannot protect. You want to protect yourself against pain, but you cannot. You have to go through it, because pain will teach you. You want to protect yourself from the others. You cannot, because the others will teach you. So you have to go through the process of feeling. And for me, there was an eye opener for me, because once you start to open up and feel life again, life start to open up too, and your life is changing. Very few. It's very difficult. I see a lot of, now that we have our school in Geneva and that I teach Systema, whatever. I see a lot of students come out of interest because they see the, Russian Spetsnaz, former military, blah, blah, blah. They want to learn this crazy martial art. But once they realize that they're going to have to feel, go through pain, uncertainty, loss, confusion, humility, weakness, very few stay. I mean, it's very difficult, not for the body so much, but for the mind and the psychic. It's very hard to go through the learning process, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think, like, I can understand. I guess these, again, I don't know a lot about it, but I know that they're very key on breath. They're very the focus on breath is something that I've never even heard about in any martial art. And it seems, like your learnings have only continually been upgraded and deeper.
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I've been studying Systema for 10 years, and I just actually got back from Russia, and I have the impression that I'm only starting the journey.
Wow.
It's just the beginning.
And what were you doing in Russia?
I was training with one of my good teacher in Russia, and his name is Konstantin Kamarov, and he's a very good teacher of mine. We've known each other for almost 8 years, and I was training with him in Russia.
And
that was a process.
I don't know. Is there anything that you really took away from that time in Russia just recently that that stuck with you, or anything about the training that you did?
Well, yeah, it's more. I just realized it's more internal than ever. It's deeper than what I thought. It's everything that I knew, but just more. It's more about feeling. Every time we rely on our muscles to perform something, we're basically failing to understand what's behind it. But Systema, it's like hypnosis. We could talk about it all day, but it's really have to feel.
It's a process, sure.
Yeah, it's really a feeling process. Remember the massage we did in Iceland? You remember, right?
Yeah, it was good. I remember. I remember Andres is probably the most profound. But yeah, I remember learning just the basics of. So I guess to the audience, we did this massage we did two massages. Firstly, we explored. We were in partners and we explored the other people's organs and just bodies. And so you're kind of playing around and you're listening to their breath and you're pushing and deepening, feeling into where they're at without a huge amount of communication. Would you say that's right?
Yeah.
And then we had a one-on-one and I don't know what happened. Something, like I don't really have a lot of words. It's one of those memories or experiences that I will remember for a long time. I remember I think I laughed or I cried a lot. I remember a lot of emotion coming. Did I laugh or cry? There was something.
I think most people do both at the beginning. So
But what did I do? I remember something happening. I remember.
I think laughing a lot, but laughing to the point of crying, of course, definitely. I don't know if it went beyond that.
Because I remember it was quiet time. It was like quiet time and they were like, hey, Eddie, you got to shut up because you fucking, Yeah, I remember I was just making a lot of noise, but I didn't have control over the noise, which was really nice. It was this beautiful just flowing of really, I now remember it. And then something happened at the end. My whole left side of my body just felt completely, I don't know. Feeling stuff is hard to communicate about.
It is, huh? Yeah.
Because it's. But I remember it was a really, really beautiful, positive experience. Yeah.
It is. That's why people should not, again, trust everything they see on the internet as regards to Systema. You really have to experience. It's a very personal experience. It's a very long journey. It really helps, I think, for me, day-to-day life. Of course, fighting, yeah, sure. But there's so much more than fighting. I mean, people don't spend their life fighting, so they spend their life living. And I think Systema that's why I like it, it doesn't lie. It teaches you about living. Of course, fighting is part of living somehow, but it just doesn't focus on all the negative stuff on it. So it's all about living.
It's not about, what if this guy comes to you in a pub with a bottle and...
No, not at all. It's something bad happened. You have to move, breathe, and punch. But to get to that simpleness of reaction takes a lot of time and takes a lot of fear away. Fear will prevent you from acting the right way. Only fear would. Everyone is able to punch anyone in the face if there's no fear. But that's why we should work on the fear.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I hear that. And can we just talk a little bit about trauma and what you have experienced working with trauma? Where is it stored? I think maybe that's just the opening question. Is in regards to what happens with trauma and in our psyche, in our bodies. Well, you've worked with it a lot, and I know the word trauma is very broad and it has multiple levels, and it can have it can be deeper, and it can have malevolence, and there can be a lot of aspects that come into it.
It's
a universal question. It's a broad question, I understand, but
I think an interesting point to raise is that there is a connection and also a difference between a trauma stored in the body and the trauma stored in the mind or the psychic of a person. And I think it's just an important point to raise as such, because that's why there are some stuff that are easier to get rid of by working through the body, and there are stuff that are easier to get rid of by working through the mind. Because the trauma, I don't know if there's a place where it is stored per se, but some traumas are more mind related or psychic related, and some traumas are more body related.
Okay, and the body related stuff, is there a set of examples where you're like, cool, car crash, body body related. You know, and these would have a certain set of requirements for the body more to store that trauma. Just from what you have seen.
Well, I think based on any potentially traumatic event, if a person is facing such a situation, I guess a little bit will be stored in the body and a little bit will be stored in the mind. Now, for example, in a car accident, we can maybe assume that more will be stored in the, well, actually we can't. Even in a car accident, we can't assume that more will be stored in the body and less in the mind. I don't know. This is not based on anything concrete and just a very personal experiment and personal work. But there is a percentage. How it is divided between the mind and the body, I don't know. It depends on each person. But for example, to stay with the example of the car crash, let's say a person is in a car accident. The body is in shock, the mind is in shock. But it's taken care to the hospital and the body heals, but nobody takes care of the mind. Well, even if the body heals, the mind will keep a certain trauma. Maybe imagine there has been a vision of something terrible during the car accident. The mind will store something, and I don't know. It's hard to explain and to reply to that question, because the trauma of the mind, even if the body is healed, will eventually go back to the body at some point. It's a little bit confusing what I'm saying, but
Not at all. For me, it makes sense.
yeah.
Because I believe the body's intelligence is greater. That's for me, though.
Yeah, there's a deep connection. It's only the beginning for me to work with both at the same time in my practice, and to work with the mind and the body at the same time, because they both carry their loads, and when you work with one, you work with the others. They're kind of related, but it's hard for me to explain. Sorry, in which way? Yeah. It's hard to explain in how they're related and how they're connected, and to which degree. Yeah, but the important point, because to keep things general and at on a broader scale, things do not, maybe interesting for the audience. Things do not go away per se. Like sometimes a person would go to an emergency, whatever, see dead people, and he says, "Oh, well, I feel a little bit disturbed tonight. Whatever, it's gonna go away. I'll be better in a few days." I
Sure.
have the belief that it will not. It doesn't go away. It's just hidden. It just hides somewhere in the psychic, or it hides in the body. It just don't leave unless you work on it. It just doesn't leave. It just
Okay.
stays.
But on the psyche, you can work on parts. How do you work on the body part?
Well, the body is well, through massage, through breathing, movement, and a lot of stuff that we do in Systema is basically this type of work. You know, how to release deep tension from the body. Basically, a tension in the body is a fear that hides itself in the body somewhere.
Say
And a
that
lot,
last part again.
well, tension in the body is a fear. Is a fear that is somewhere in the body, that hides in the body
Yeah. Wow.
That's why when you punch someone, and you punch a person deep enough, it's not the pain that puts that person down. It's its own fear that has been touched by your touch. It's very strange to say it like that, but it's that's why people sometimes die from shock, by being hit, or they die of shock, not by the intensity of the blow, but just because the blow has touched a very deep fear, and they die from that fear opening up inside.
Interesting.
It's hard for me to talk about this, because this is very new, and I'm only now making the connection between my work in hypnosis and my work in Systema. And the more I study both, the more I say, okay, they're related, and the more I include Systema in my therapeutic work, and it's very, very interesting. But it's at the same time new. Maybe in a few years I'll be able to talk more about it.
Okay.
But it's
Cool.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Like deeply. I think we're gonna wrap it up just because of the time, and then we'll do a part 2 in a week or so.
Of course, if it's interesting for the audience, interesting for you, I mean, prepare some questions. I'd be happy to share.
Yeah. That I can do. I'm just gonna stop recording. Hold on.